Watch yourself. You may not look at bunnies, your reflection, or scissors the same way again. Jordan Peele's Us. Spoiler-free review. Hey Twisted people, it's your Twisted Girl Next Door here, and today I am doing a spoiler-free review of Jordan Peele's latest movie, Us. A family serenity turns to chaos when a group of doppelgängers begins to terrorize them in Santa Cruz. Overall, this was a very haunting, stylized horror movie. I really like the style of it. I like the call to references of classics that we've come to know and love if you're a horror lover. But I also like the fact that it felt like Jordan Peele was somewhat remixing the horror genre in the sense of some of the classics and kind of turning things on top of their head as well. And it was just really stylized and it really worked. Now, it wasn't a perfect movie, which I'll get into. I did not think this movie was perfect. There was actually a few glaring things that I want to talk about. But overall, I just think this was a really solid horror movie, which was pretty much his goal, right? After Get Out and having a very straightforward horror picture, and that was achieved in this for sure. And it's definitely going to be the kind of movie that when the credits roll, people are still going to be talking about it, trying to figure out what the heck in certain aspects of what they actually sat down and saw, which may be the actual intention. The acting. Oh my gosh, Lupita, the main actress, Lupita, was phenomenal in her role. And I can't say too much about what she did because I don't want to spoil it, but she was a marvel to watch, and she really helped to carry a good chunk of the film in the sense of what she needed to do in order for this to be carried along, and it just really worked. She gave a haunting performance that was very layered and complex in showing vulnerability and showing fear and showing anxiety, but also showing strength and showing madness as well. And it really there were some very poignant scenes that totally worked, and I mean, people are going to be talking about her performance, if you ask me, because it was phenomenal, and it definitely was a highlight of this movie. And I think that's important to point out because sometimes in horror pictures, it's really great when the acting is solid, but we all know that the acting doesn't have to be all that great if there's enough scares and things of that nature. So it was cool that the acting was phenomenal as well. The family also has a lot of chemistry. I think the casting was really appropriate in the sense of the characters being able to interact with each other, aka the actors playing off of one another. So it was a believable family. Because if you've seen any of my other videos, I kind of have a bias against really crappy families in horror pictures. Where, it's just kind of like you kind of want them to die because they're so crappy and you're wondering how did the wife ever marry the husband and how are they not strangling their offspring constantly because the offspring are so friggin' annoying to the point where you don't care if the family lives or dies. And so this movie did a very good job of making it so you believe the chemistry between the family and you also cared about their plight. The premise. For those who might not know, Us is actually inspired by the Twilight Zone, which is ironic because Jordan Peele is actually rebooting the Twilight Zone. It's based off of an episode of the Twilight Zone called Mirrored Image, which deals with a woman and her evil doppelganger. So that's the premise of it. Of course, there's expansion. There's a whole type of, universe and mythology that's created in folklore that Peele expands on. But I thought that was a really great, simplistic, but also terrifying thought process in terms of what if people had evil personas or whatever, that it really worked. And I really like the premise of the film, which is different, right? Sometimes you got these home invasion movies, you got these slasher flicks, and then you have something like this where it's been a minute. Diversity. Well, I think you kind of knew I was going to point this out, but it is focused on a black family, which is really great. It doesn't bludgeon you over the head with the idea of not using what we're used to in mainstream movies, which is like, white characters being the default to show the human condition and the reflection of the universal experience. And this movie allowed it so that a black family was at the center of a mainstream horror picture. Because sometimes, and what I've heard is that if you have two black leads, it's considered a black movie, aka not mainstream movie, whatever that means. Anyway, so I think this movie is a step in that direction, and Black Panther before it, which two of our leads were part of that movie as well, and a step in the direction of saying that white or predominantly white doesn't have to be the default for a mainstream movie, doesn't have to be a default for a universal film. And I appreciated that. And it was nice to see a strong Black woman character as well in Lupita's performance. So kudos. Atmosphere. So Peele also, in writing this movie, he also directs it, and he does a fine job of that. There are just the way the camera pans in certain aspects, the colors that are used, the stylistic way that certain characters move, and the music that is picked for certain scenes really come together to create such a really horrifying atmosphere that lulls you in with a sense of normalcy and security that also has danger brimming under the surface, and he does a fine job of displaying that. So it's 2 hours long, but you don't feel like it's 2 hours long in the sense that everything matters. Everything that's showed needs to happen, and you don't feel like you're like dragging along through the movie. And I think that comes from creating such a great environment and atmosphere that really just draws the viewer in. Okay, with that, this was not a perfect movie, but then again, no movie is perfect, okay? So don't take my cons thinking I'm like, oh my gosh, this movie was trash. It was a solid movie, but it was not perfect. So I got like 2 cons. One is minor, one is semi more than minor. The humor. I will preface this by saying I appreciated the humor in some aspects. And then in other aspects, I felt like it was a little too much. I felt like there were moments where the stakes were raised, but then for whatever reason, a character would make a joke or make a quip, and it was meant to be funny, and it was like, well, why did they joke at this exact moment? No one would joke at this exact moment. So I didn't think the humor landed in some cases, which is, hard to say because yeah, it should land in some cases, given who made the movie and whatnot. In other cases, it just didn't. I also think, because I did go watch it in a movie theater with other people, as people do in watching new releases, that because when there was a joke inserted, that people got so used to there being jokes inserted that they started laughing at things that weren't meant to be funny. Now, of course, that's not the people who made the movie's fault, but when you create an atmosphere like that, where certain jokes are said and they don't really need to be there. And, people, when there's tension, people get nervous, so they start to laugh at something, or they try to attach on to something to laugh at. And I really think the audience attempted to do that a lot of the time. And so what would happen would be that there would be a scene and it'd be like, this isn't funny right now. But because people were expecting a joke, because we had gotten so many kind of jokes throughout, that they would laugh. And I think that kind of broke the tension in some cases. Plot holes, ? I put question mark after plot holes because I'm going to be completely honest with you. I liked the plot. I liked this story. I liked the twists and turns. It was very exciting. But then after the credits rolled, I was really thinking about it. Or more so in the midst of the movie, I was thinking about certain twists and turns, and not everything added up. Now, I want to say that and point that out with complete humility to say that maybe I just missed something in the midst of watching it. Maybe I got to watch it a second time. Maybe some stuff just flew over my head that I wasn't understanding how all of this made sense in certain aspects. And I will admit that that might have been the case, although I watched it pretty closely. But I'm going to tell you, I think certain things weren't answered in a satisfying way. And I won't get into it because that's spoilers, but there were certain things that once you watch it, and maybe those of you who are watching this who have watched it are probably having the same questions that I'm having and saying something didn't add up. Certain things didn't add up. Now, that's not to say the whole movie didn't make sense, but there were certain things where it's like, I got questions because that don't make no sense. Where did they get that stuff from? How did they keep doing this? And so on and so forth, if you get what I'm saying. So I put question mark after plot holes because maybe I missed something, or maybe Peele just didn't want to answer it and wanted to keep it a mystery. Maybe that was the point, but I'm going to say plot holes because some stuff didn't add up and it wasn't really explained to me as well as it could have been. And believe you me, that is not me saying that I wanted every single thing explained to the T. I am not that kind of person. I'm actually someone who watches horror and enjoys when there's a little bit of mystery left in it. The only trigger warning I will say about this movie is that it has extreme violence, which you probably guessed was the case, but you don't want to assume that everyone figures a horror movie is going to have violence in it, because some horror movies are about ghosts and stuff and like mist and things. And in this movie, yeah, no, that's not the case. It's extremely violent in some scenes. Like, yeah. Yes, this movie is Stab approved. I overall, despite, or maybe because of, I don't know, my plot holes, question mark, I really enjoyed the film. I did. I had a lot of questions after the film finished, and it got me talking about it, got me thinking about some of the mystery that was left and some of the mysteries that I didn't think needed to be left. But nonetheless, it got me talking, and I think it will get a lot of people talking after they watch it. And the scares are solid, and it's actually a really solid horror movie. And there are some scenes in this film that are so beautiful and so morbid and so right. Okay, so did you watch Jordan Peele's Us? What did you think? Let me know. Comment down below. Do you think I'm right or wrong when it comes to my question mark plot holes? Let me know. Comment down below. Let me know your thoughts. Also, but don't give any spoilers. Don't give any spoilers in the comment section, y'all. Don't do that, because this is a spoiler-free review, and if people haven't seen it, I don't want to be responsible for having had a video that in the comments people spoiled it for them. Let's all play fair when it comes to the horror love. So let me know, comment down below, let me know your thoughts, and also be sure to subscribe so that you are the first to know when I post my videos of all things horror, dark fantasy, and dark superhero. Thanks for watching. Let's get creepy together.